Hello, everybody. Hi, Charlene, and I guess hi to my parents as well because I know they're watching because they gave me some comments about my lighting last time. So I think I fixed it today. Okay, let's see. A second check. Okay, so today I'm planning to paint up some of these old Citadel miniatures dwarfs that I have been sitting on my bench for almost a year now. I've started painting them about this time last year, I think. And yeah, they're still not finished. So I was hoping to move them along a bit today. I did check up the date on them, and apparently they were released in 2006, which means that they're old enough to drink, at least here. Okay, these are the guys. So my plan for today is to paint up their axes, and I'm not going to go for metallic paints because that would be too easy. So instead, I'm going to do some non-metallic metal stuff. Okay, just for those who are not familiar with the abbreviations, that stands for, sorry, the term that's usually called NMM, that's non-metallic metal, and it's basically painting up the piece to look like it's reflecting light. So if you see this particular miniature here, for example, that's not reflected light, that's actually white paint on there to make it look like it's shining. Okay, look at a couple of other examples here. Okay, so mostly we're going with black for the deepest areas and then going up to the grays, up to the white. Now, this is one of the cases where the rule that you don't use pure white is dropped because here we really want to show something really bright. We want to really to be aware of here is the contrast because otherwise, if you have sorry, if you don't have enough contrast, what will happen is that you end up with a soft-looking surface, like this here, for example. It's still gray and white, but there's very little difference between the two shades, so it ends up looking softer. One last example. Okay, here. So again, we've got the gradient going from white to black over here, and then we've got some white edge highlights just to bring it out. Okay, and on the handle here, you can see there's also a gradient, but it's much darker. Still has enough contrast to show that. Okay, same thing with the half here, with the place where the head meets the handle. Okay, now you can go with pure gray, or as I did here, you can mix in some blue with it, which is good if you want to do some like sky reflections, or you could even mix in some earth colors if you want it to look like it's reflecting the ground. I don't usually go that far. And just to be clear, this is something that I'm still practicing, so we're basically learning it as we go along. Okay, let me mix up some colors. For these guys, I'm just going to go with black and white, so we're going to build out a gradient out of that. If the paint will leave. Come on, can do it. white next. So I'm going with Mars black and titanium white for this. Now, normally I really don't like to use titanium white because it's incredibly chalky, but again, it's the best tool for this job. Okay, and the first order of business is to get a gray base to start from. It's probably a touch too bright for what we're going here, so let's add a little more black. And I'm just making sure that there are no streaks in the paint, so I don't get any accidental bright spots or dark spots where I don't want them. Let's start with a simpler one. Okay, so what I'm going to go for first is establishing the edge of the X and then highlighting the bottom edge over here. There's a kind of a small ornament there that I'll do in a different color later. Water in there. And yeah, in this case, you really want to make sure that you remember to do both sides. Okay, the top of it done, and I'm also going to go for the little bit at the bottom here. Right now, there is not going to be much to be seen, but as we build up the layers, then it should start showing much more clearly. Okay, I've got 10 dwarfs here, but I will be skipping two of them. One of them is because that particular dwarf does not have an axe, because he's carrying a standard, and the other one has a hammer. And the reflections on that will work a bit differently. So that's something we'll tackle separately. it might not be very visible, but uh, I'm trying to do here is I'm getting that gray close to the beginning of the edge, but not right up to it. So the edge is gray, the body is mostly gray, but there's still a black line running in between them. You might see the reflection of the paint at least to show you where it's stopping. You have to work around those little ornaments on the blade. Now the exit here is a little different because you've got those two separate layers. So what I think I'll do is I'll just do the tops of these for now because you've got the light coming down on them. And then work a bit here in the middle and on those sides. Okay, okay, different sculpt again. But we're going to go with the same process. So we're going to do the edge of the X, get a nice clean line there. Okay, just of the head. Again, working around the little ornament. Okay, now this time put a little bolt in there, some paint on top of it. And here we've got a flat surface. So for this one, I'm just going to shade the top part of that for now. Okay, same again. Okay, we're going up to another shade soon enough, so that should be much easier to see. Non-metallic metal is one of those things that really fascinated me ever since I discovered it. And I'm not gonna lie, it does take a lot of effort to do, and it's very easy to mess up. But I guess I kind of like the challenge, and I prefer the way it looks because regular metallic paint can be a bit overwhelming at the scale, but that might just be me. So, how did you spend your Sunday evening? Well, I was just watching some weird guy paint dark gray over black. Fascinating stuff. Probably not the weirdest Sunday evening I spent, but yeah. Okay, just one last one, and then we can go to the next shade. Yeah, okay. Bring this up some. time I really want to go a bit more diluted than I did earlier. Partly because it's going to give us a smoother result, but also because it's going to let us layer things a lot better. That's about right. And this time I'm going to focus on the areas where the light would be hitting. So in this case, I'm going to say it would be somewhere on the center of this curve. I want to start from the middle and work out in both directions. Okay, and a bit around here. So we want to stay in the area filled in already. So each layer will have less and less area. It will all make sense later. We'll start to glaze on top of it. Now, because we're going to go from large area to small area, what you have to remember is to give yourself space to work in, because it's easy to go for relatively small highlights, and then you end up out of space. That's to save it, but it might not be exactly what you were intending to do originally. Okay, so different sculpt. This time we're going to stick to the top of this here. Hey Nick, good to see you. Okay, around to about halfway point there looks right. Ooh, watching the World Championship final. That's the Chess World Championship finals, which I did not know was a thing actually until Nick educated me in the world of chess championships. And I'm just here putting paint on small plastic people. So the process for this is very, very repetitive. So we're just going to be adding more paint in the middle here. As before, we always want to stay in the boundaries of what we painted already. this ornament here. So I'm just going. I want to be a bit careful because it's kind of like braided thingy. So I want to make sure that I stick with what's going over the top rather than just splashing paint all over it. Yeah, it's already looking a whole lot more defined. When this girl sends in delete to one before the last game, I have no idea what that means, but I guess he's winning. I know nothing about painting, but it's nice to see the magic happen. Thanks. I mean, you probably know more about painting than I do, given your calligraphy skills. Pretty sure that a lot of that is transferable. So, again, sculpt, sticking to the top part for this one. Probably need to pour water on there. A lot of people like to use wet palettes for this kind of stuff. I'm not saying they're not useful, but I just always want them to be more effort than they're worth. Calligraphy has taught me that you can't use pigmented ink on colored paper because it will just disappear. You need gouache, which has never tried. Do you mean like any pigment? Because it would seem like if you try like I don't know, blue ink on red paper, I would think that would show up, no? Unless it just drinks it up somehow or something of the sort. the other thing about painting non-metallic metal is that it absolutely has an ugly face. So before you get in that final edge highlight, it will look terrible. Let's see. The contrast would be terrible to show that the ink needs to be needs a white base or be really thick so we can't see the paper through it at all. Okay. Metallic inks that deposit particles on top of the paper will show like some gold on black stuff I've done. Okay. So yeah, I mean, like you already know a lot more about inks than I do. Okay, and as usually I have to remember that this will dry a lot darker than it is here. But yeah, I was saying with this one, it's going to look a mess until the end, and that's when you hope that the edge highlight will bring it together, which it usually does. But yeah, you have to stick with the process and hope for the best. I mentioned earlier, this is not something that I'm completely confident yet, but yeah, that's why I'm practicing. Okay, different sculpt again, but this is very similar to the one with the battle trombone or whatever that is. So let's stick with more of the same. I like to keep turning the miniature over because it would not be the first time that I forgot to paint a part and only realize many steps later. Hey, Lisa, there's simply not enough coffee in the world for me today. Mm, To be honest, I don't think there's ever enough coffee in the world for any of us. I am definitely coffee fueled life form. That's one of those. Okay. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go with another layer, but I'm not going to make it brighter just yet. I'm going to use a more diluted version of the same color. So the idea behind that is that it should brighten up the area between the black and the gray slightly. So we start to create that gradient we were talking about earlier. Or it could make a mess. Who knows? Let's find out. Actually, first, let me rearrange these because I've been picking from the middle of the row. Okay, so I can always go in sequence now, which is a lot easier for me to remember. Okay, so this time I'm going to go from this gray area to the black area. Maybe a little more water. Just pick that off like that. Be enough. Okay. Now, normally I wouldn't suggest wicking the paint up with your fingers because you could stain something else you touch, but that's why I really always use these paint handles, apart from saving my hand from cramping. Okay, and we should have that little gradient forming. Might be more visible once we get the paint drying. Okay, so is anyone else working on Sunday, on something, or are we just having an easy Sunday? Okay, so brushing from the dark area to the bright area. In here, I'm trying to leave that little black line in between, just to keep a little extra contrast. And I see that loosely collected has joined us. Hi there. Once this step is done, we're going to go up another shade again. And it's really a lot of repetition until we wait. So again, paint, glaze, paint, glaze, paint, glaze until you get the shiniest layer. I mean, and you could do a lot of stuff like, for example, paint scratches on the metal or stuff, but I think that's for someone who does competition painting. I'm not going to go to that level with these guys. I made late breakfast for us, scrambled eggs with bacon bits. Mmm, nice, with mushrooms. Good stuff. Okay, I have difficulty determining how much water to add to paint to get the right amount of transparency when it dries. That's something that you need to practice because not all paints will behave in the same way. And again, it's not like I've got it down to an exact science either, but it's definitely a case of practicing with the paints that you have. Yep, mushrooms are indeed a great addition to anything. So let's see. This seems about. Oh, no, you're not going to see it. To get a place where it's not. But yeah, this is about as diluted as I want it right now. So it's actually mostly water. It's pretty much a dirty paint water level. So what we're looking for is basically you don't want it to be so thin that it's like a wash, so it will stay where you place it. Unlike a wash with where it will just run off everywhere. But it's not like something that you could get full coverage with. I have been using out of Vallejo Express colors, and I think them a bit with adding them a bit with a mix of homemade airbrush reducer, mixed with acrylic 30 matte medium. That works. I mean, like I think the Express colors are a bit thinner than the regular acrylics to begin with. No, matte medium is also an option, but I really like to water is fine for most things. I feel I have a better control of thin transparent colors that way. The one thing with the matte medium is that yes, it would give you a more transparent color because there's more medium to pigment ratio without it being as runny as it would be if you're using water. So yeah, I could see why that would actually be a lot easier to work with. If you're just applying it to flat surfaces, for example, it's not that much of a problem. Now, if it was something with a lot of detail, then yeah, I would definitely prefer that. Would a flow medium work for acrylic pours? When you say an acrylic pour, what do you mean? If you want to do an acrylic pour or something like that? That cross also join us? I cross? I prefer to err on the side of too much water. I can always add another layer. Yes, exactly. I mean, you can always add more paint. Removing paint is not that easy. One of my colleagues suggested oil washers last time because that's something that he's been using a lot. Super interesting. I have not had the time to look into those yet, though. But from what I've seen, I mean, like there's a ton of options in there. would the flow medium work to do what you're doing with water down paint? I think flow medium might be a bit too much for this. I think at least because if I'm not mistaken, flow medium is like for when they use those, they put something down and then they pour the paint on it. I think that might be a bit too much for this. Okay, and Lucy Collect it says, I do a lot of underpainting with my primer, and yeah, I start fairly thin with transparent paint, and then add more if I need. Yeah, I mean, like, underpainting is a great thing. I mean, even if you just start with black and white prime, that already gives you all the details to work with if you just layer transparent paints on top. But what I'm finding myself experimenting with more recently is underpainting with different colors. For example, I do that out with the skin colors, and I find that it gives some really interesting effects. Drop the comment to showcase in here again. Okay, so I've added more white in there, so we can get up to the next layer. And this time I'm just going to try to stick to the center of that area. Maybe just slightly up from the center, but not much further down or up. Yeah, but that much will do. It do roughly the same area on the other side, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. Because the thing about miniatures, you cannot look at them from both sides at the same time. Maybe flick up the top, but you're not going to see that much anyway. And I'm going to the just about the center, not going to the edges. So my priming goes black, then red, brown, then a 10. All of that gets done with a spray can and then a final bright white and makeup brush. Oh, that's interesting. Sounds like a lot of work, but it goes quicker than the paint and pays off. Yeah, I guess. I can see a bit of that gradient starting there. Now I will be putting dark wash over this later anyway, so it kind of builds up, smooths everything down, and then build up the final layer of highlight. But that's still a bit away for now. Like I mentioned, not the first time I forgot to paint part of a miniature. Okay, so again, this one mostly in this area. Do I want to go up to the top? Yeah, I'll go up to the top for this one. So we're just repeating what we did earlier. We're sticking mostly to the areas that were highlighted already. Most people use a black white transition, which is fine, but it's cartoon punchy, really bright. The black into red brown to tan is much warmer, more natural maybe. Hmm. I think the gray makes a good neutral base. I prefer not to go with a full black, so that's why mostly I work from grays. But again, in for 28 millimeter miniatures, I think you need a bit of punch because they're so small. So is it fully realistic? Absolutely not. But I think you need to exaggerate something sometimes. But that's absolutely a stylistic thing. For example, choosing to paint all your dwarves with non-metallic metal is a stylistic choice, and it's probably someone that reasonable people do not do. But really, I'm not in a rush. So basically, every miniature I paint is painting practice for me. That's why some of those things, like for example, 4 hour crafting competition or something like that, is something that fills me with dread. That's not. It goes against the grain of why I like to paint or craft. You can always switch the color shift based on what predominant color you'll be painting, using colors that are complementary as undercoats. Yeah, that is a good plan. So basically, it's the same that I was mentioning last time. Like, don't darken colors by mixing them with black. You darken colors by using complementary color. Is the complementary color opposite color on the color wheel, whatever that is. I'm afraid I am not up to date on my terminology. Never was. I'm pretty sure we're supposed to have art classes in school, but didn't really happen that often. It would have been interesting to turn this in as my homework, though. It's like, okay, where's your homework? Here, an army of angry alcoholics. I can post the pics to Discord of what I have planned so far. Yeah, I mean, you can post them in the community showcase if you like. That's exactly what that's there for. Hey, okay, so same thing over again. We're going to go with the dilution of this on top of the stuff we just made. Using this so that I make sure I don't have any of the more solid paint on the brush. Again, going from middle of this and brushing into the other one. It's strong, but let's see how that looks when it's dry. My problem is I don't know when to stop when painting a mini. What's just kind of put some boundaries for yourself, like for example, here on the blue stuff here. This will stop when I've got three shades on top. But because yeah, I know the problem of just you keep painting and you keep painting and you keep painting and at some point you're going to hit diminishing returns. So I think especially if you're starting out trying to paint miniatures, just set yourself boundaries like that. Like okay, I'm going to do three shades of color on this area or three shades of whatever on that other area, and then stop. So, yeah, I mean, it can be very tempting to fixate on detail. I probably need to fix that with some dark wash later, but I think it's basically the colors blend into each other there. It's fixable. I have to stop and say that looks like the thing I intended to be. Set it down, look at it a couple of days, come back and a bit later. I do feel like I have played a lot more with color theory, paint, primer, and whatnot over the last couple of years, and maybe I've made some ground. Mm, Look, experimenting is fun. I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff, like, for example, object source lighting and this that I'm just messing around with. I don't understand. all the principles as well as I should. For example, if I really wanted to get into this, I'd be worrying about like object reflectivity and stuff like that. But just having fun making something that looks okay, mostly. And in the process, I did learn a lot more about color blending and stuff like that. I don't go for wood blends anymore because I found other ways to get similar effects without less effort, like for example, feathering and stuff. But it's good to know anyway. It's always good to have those tricks up your sleeve. So, yeah, I think it is getting somewhere. Yeah, that will definitely need a bit of dark wash later. Let's bump it up to the white now. So going with almost pure white. I'll save the pure white for the edge highlight. Thank you, Lisa, but not even close. Still not a blender. I've made some ground on glazes, but I do it with the thin transparent colors. Tinned with the mix I mentioned earlier. Yeah, I mean, again, glazing is a glazing is something that you can do tons of stuff with. You can basically, if you get really good at glazing, you don't even need to worry about blending. It's always to get a really good effect. You don't need to know all the techniques. Nice if you do, but not necessary. Okay, so now I'm just going to be super careful and I'm just going to do the edges of the blades. I'm not going to go for the back of the blade, no, for the back of the exit, I mean. Just this and white in the center. You got a nice shine, I like it. I'll also need to figure out how to paint this battle trombone later, but that's for another day. Bits of the ornamentation. Okay, so here in this case, for example, I'm not going at the top. I'm just going in the middle of the gray area. So somewhere here. I realize that that could be a lot smoother, but we'll fix it later. I want to see how it turns out first. Just curious, how often do we see blonde dwarves? Is it natural or is it L'Oreal? I don't know. Maybe it's Maybelline. Not normal to see blonde dwarfs. They're kind of Scandinavian inspired kind of thing. So you'd think there would be a few blonde ones. You got to bear in mind the direction of light. So if I'm holding it like this, I cannot just slope down. I just have to remember that this is the orientation. The one thing I don't like about this is that just missing a bit there, but I suspect that the dark wash will fix that because there's this kind of ornament here that's sticking out and a bit of gray, but it's a bit funny. But I'll wait until we have the dark wash on there. Okay, so next I'm just going to go with the white and do that small blend in there, and after that, that should be ready for the dark wash. But I'll probably wait until this is completely dry because last thing we want to do is put the wash on top of wet paint or even slightly wet paint because that's going to make a mess of absolutely everything. I have seen blonde dwarves in art before, but black, brown, and red seem to be prevalent colors unless they're old and then gray or white. Oh, okay. You think there would be more albino dwarves than white? Yeah, I guess they got, I don't know, dwarf sun lamps or stuff like that. Handle it. Okay, I'm just going very carefully, and I don't know if this helps you guys, but I find that if there's even a little contact between my hands, it's a lot more stable. I spilled a bunch of paint there. I don't like that. That should fix it. It's my favorite of the lot so far. Yeah, let me just get the dark wash, and hopefully that will be dry enough for me to apply that. My brush is out. Yes. Okay, so going to use some nuln oil here. I don't use this a lot, but when I do, it's very heavily diluted because this thing goes on super dark. For example, here medium would be a good option to use instead of water because it's already washed and we're going to make it uh, super runny. This should be enough. And it's just going to go over all the metal area. Let's hope for the best. does seem to be a bubble in the plastic though. That's going to stay a little bit there. So, much better. Okay. Well, make stuff. Why just DX? What do you mean? Why I'm just applying wash to DX? Okay. So basically, that's because it's because the X is the part I'm painting right now. Uh, I know some people, especially when a while back were saying like, yeah, you paint a thing and then you dunk it in strong tone and so on. If you're painting some things, that's fine. And if you're painting the whole mini and then you're putting a wash over the mini, that's okay. It's not just a spot wash. It's also because this is the part I'm painting right now. I mean, like, for example, the face doesn't need it, the armor doesn't need it, the blue bits don't need it. I'm trying to focus, so I'm focusing on one spot at a time. Besides, it's not like these aren't like buildings or pieces of terrain. Like you don't want, for example, the skin to have the same finish as the metal, except in some cases. But this is not that kind of nature. Target wash is a thing. Yes, target wash is absolutely a thing because in most cases you don't want to put the wash over everything. For example, if you have some details like buttons and you want to put some shadow under them to make them pop, you would just get a tiny amount of wash and drop it right under the button. You don't want to put that wash all over the coat, for example. Okay, so this is where we are at right now. I think we're going to be okay once we get the edge highlighting one, but that's not going to happen today because this will need some time to dry. So for now, we're just going to head over to the community showcase, see if there's anything interesting to see there, and yeah, probably calling it a night for today. Okay, we'll have one item from Cross, and there's more work on his ship. I believe he'll be doing, excuse me, more work on this on his stream later on today. Got some portals going on. Ah, that's a lot of work. I guess not the way I would have done it. Probably would have sculpted it in the wood and just carved it out. But this is going to look so much better. But cameo from Colin the Chaos Warrior there. Hello, Colin. So, yeah, I really can't wait to see how this ship turns out when it's done. Okay, and loosely collected. Do you want to post something from your under painting stuff, or is that something that you will post somewhere else later? Later. like I did those on my live stream. Yeah, and he'll be doing more of this later today. Okay, so let's see. I had to paint some bronze X blades once. I started with brown and then used some copper and brass metallics over it. But lost some of that brown I wanted and used the brown wash to bring it back. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so while the loosely collected gets his pictures, one second, let me get my own bronze thingy. Let's see. I used the jig to measure how high to cut the windows, then trimmed all the frames to fit after the host rain. That sounds like so much work. I'm glad you're doing this and not me. Just saying. Okay, so since we're talking about bronze, this is basically what we're doing today, except that rather than using grays, I was going with browns into yellows. And yeah, also got some of that OSL that Benjamin was talking about. Got the candles here and the lantern, and that gets the extra yellow shading on the ornaments there. Okay, not so much on the back because yeah, I mean, like mostly is going to be seen from the front, but pretty much same process. Okay, this card, okay, but loosely collected awesome stuff in here. Let's see. Okay, this makes so much sense because, for example, if you're going on to green or flesh colors or the fur colors of those, that set of shades makes a lot of sense. Yep, found them. So is this the base used for green, or are you going to paint these goblins a different color? Got some really old school stuff in here. Really old school. That's a nice head of squid. And these look like goblins with. I'm not sure if those are supposed to be plague doctor masks or like big nose helmets. These guys over here, but they look also awesome either way. Okay, if it is for green as well as Caucasian flesh. Okay, good to know. Okay, loosely collected. How long do you wait between coats? I would say probably until the paint is dry. That is usually a good idea. Ooh, okay. This giant looks out like Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead. Lemmy the giant. And are these dragging artillery shells or something like that? Yeah, stylized goblin armor too. Yes, it makes sense that they're Turnip 28 adjacent. Plus, those are some snotlings in there, which are one of my favorite Warhammer unit ever. Nothing beats snotlings. I mean, a lot of things beat snotlings, but they're too stupid to notice. Yeah, I see that you also texture the bases before you paint it. There's kind of a very exclusive thought about it, but that's a good way of doing it. And okay, this is the word giant I'm redoing. So he's got this whole platform on his back to carry the other goblins and stuff. The goblins on rockets are unit flares for fun. I thought so too, and I intend on painting him that way. Awesome. Okay, I'm really looking forward to see that. This one looks like a lot of fun as well. Ooh, okay, okay, this is awesome. So you build a pressure pot to do resin casting. That's really cool. I know that Sultanic also does a lot of resin casting, so you'll probably have a lot to talk about there. This looks interesting, super interesting. I'm not going to try this at home because I don't want to blow up my tool room accidentally. But good job. Stay safe. Yes. Yeah, I'm making this for the Warhammer the Old World, but there's a mix of resin cast, 3D prints, plastics, and metals from all over. I mean, that looks like that's a fantastic collection. So great job there. Okay, so I think I'm just going to call it a day for today because this is as far as I can get until the washes dry out. I'll be posting some photos of the work in progress later so that yeah, everyone sees where it is. Other than that, well, thanks everyone for joining, and hope you found something useful from this chat, or at least you found it entertaining. So, see you next week. I do plan to have some interviews shortly. I'm just doing these painting streams to not forget how to stream because that is the thing that can happen, and also because I've got a lot of unpainted nature, so I need to sort that out. So next week we'll probably do some more painting, and at the end of this month we're finally going to have the wrap up of the winter terrain challenge. So yeah, if you haven't finished that yet, just remember to throw the photos in the Google Drive, and we'll see them at the end of the month. Other than that, thank you so much, everyone, and have a fantastic week. Bye.